Have you ever wondered how World War II, a conflict that engulfed the globe, could have had a profound impact on human rights? The seeds of this cataclysmic event were sown in the wake of the First World War, with the rise of fascism in Germany and Italy. A wave of nationalism swept these nations, leading to the emergence of dictators like Hitler and Mussolini who fed on the discontent of their citizens. Meanwhile, in the East, Japan was setting its sights on expanding its empire, intensifying tensions in the already volatile region. By the time 1939 rolled around, these simmering tensions erupted into full-blown hostilities in Europe, marking the beginning of the Second World War. Power blocks formed, with countries choosing sides in a global battle that promised to redefine the very concept of war. From the Allies to the Axis, nations braced themselves for the storm that was brewing. The world stage was set for a conflict that would redefine the limits of humanity. As the war machinery rolled on, the human cost became impossible to ignore. We saw the world plunge into a vortex of violence, starting with Germany's audacious invasion of Poland in 1939. This act of aggression marked the beginning of a global conflict that would last for 6 long years. Our journey through these war years takes us to the icy landscapes of Stalingrad. Here, in the winter of 1942, the Red Army staved off the German onslaught in a brutal confrontation. This Battle of Stalingrad, marked by its ferocious street fighting, was the turning point of the war, signaling the beginning of the end for the Axis powers. But the war was not just a series of battles. It was also an era of unspeakable human rights violations. The Holocaust, Hitler's final solution, saw 6 million Jews systematically exterminated in concentration and extermination camps. This genocide remains one of the most horrific instances of ethnic cleansing in history. Moving to the Far East, we find another chilling example of wartime brutality: the rape of Nanking. In late 1937, Japanese forces captured the Chinese city of Nanking and unleashed a wave of violence, rape, and murder against its citizens. This 6-week period of carnage resulted in the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people, and is a stark reminder of the atrocities committed during this global conflict. Finally, we arrive at a moment that forever changed the course of human history: the dropping of atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August of 1945. The detonations obliterated the cities, instantly killing over 100,000 people, and leaving lasting impacts on the survivors and future generations. This marked the dawn of the nuclear age, an era characterized by the fear of total annihilation. In the midst of chaos, the world witnessed some of the worst atrocities committed against humanity. As we delve deeper into the aftermath of the war in the next segment, we'll see how these events have shaped our world today. With the end of the war came a time for reflection and reckoning. The final echoes of artillery fire had barely faded when the world began to grapple with the weight of what had transpired. The aftermath of the Second World War was a period of recovery, but it was also a time of accountability. The physical destruction was immense, cities reduced to rubble, economies in shambles. But it was the human toll, the violation of human rights on an unprecedented scale, that demanded immediate attention. In the wake of this global conflict, the world sought to create safeguards to prevent such atrocities from happening again. It was during this time that the United Nations was established, an international body aimed at promoting peace and cooperation among nations. One of the crowning achievements of this new organization was the drafting of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This landmark document, adopted in December 1948, set out fundamental human rights to be universally protected. It was a response to the gross human rights violations witnessed during the war, an affirmation of the inherent dignity and worth of every human being. But the aftermath of the war was not just about building a more just world, it was also about holding those who had committed atrocities accountable. This pursuit of justice led to the Nuremberg trials. For the first time in history, individuals were held accountable for war crimes on an international stage. These trials were a clear message: no one, no matter how powerful, could escape justice for crimes against humanity. The Nuremberg trials were not without controversy, but they set a precedent for international justice. They marked a shift in global consciousness, a recognition that individuals, not just states, could be held responsible for gross human rights violations. The aftermath of the Second World War was a time of reckoning, of holding accountable those who had perpetrated unthinkable atrocities. But it was also a time of hope, a moment when the world came together to say, never again. The horrors of war led to a global commitment to uphold and protect human rights. World War II left an indelible mark on history and human rights. It was a dark period that forever changed the face of our world, shaping the course of nations and sparking a global movement for human rights. The horrific events of the war, the genocides, the mass displacements, and the sheer brutality of the conflict shook the collective conscience of humanity. They emphasized the need for universal human rights that transcend borders and cultures. In the aftermath of the war, the world came together to establish the United Nations and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. These were lessons learned in the hardest way possible. Today, the memories of World War II serve as a guiding light, reminding us of the importance of upholding human rights and the devastating consequences of ignoring them. The echoes of World War II serve as a stark reminder of the atrocities that can be committed when human rights are disregarded. May we never forget.